This is Financially Fit Radio with Cory Sickles from Safe Harbor Retirement Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Cory provides his clients and prospects with the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is Financially Fit Radio with Cory Sickles.
Welcome back to another episode of Financially Fit Radio. I'm Cory Sickles with Safe Harbor Retirement Group and Wealth Advisors. If you like any information about anything that Tony and I discussed today, just feel free to reach out to us. You can always give us a call at 614-760-0670, or you can always visit our website at safeharboroh.com. And while you're on our website, feel free to check out that radio page. You can listen to previous episodes as well as also subscribe to our podcast platforms such as Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, or Spotify. Also, feel free to watch today's show on our YouTube channel. Just type in Safe Harbor Retirement Group. You can watch today's show, and you can actually go all the way back to the beginning of 2024. Also, feel free to subscribe. You'll be actually kept up to date with all our video shorts that are put out there. We're doing about 3 to 5 video shorts a week on different types of financial topics. You know, we're really here to help and guide you to make sure that you have the best secure retirement that you possibly can. And again, all of our meetings are complimentary. There's no financial obligation. So again, give us a call at 614-760-0670, or again, visit our website at safeharboroh.com. Well, last week we talked about if you're in your 40s, how do you really begin preparing? Today, we're going to now kind of jump another decade. We're going to now look at your 50s and what should you really be doing to make sure that you have the retirement that you want. Before we dive into that topic today, let me introduce to you my co-host this week and every week, and that's Tony Shore. Tony, how are you up in sunny Minnesota?
Well, actually, it was sunny last week, and we actually, I think, hit a close to a record high for the month of January. Anyway, we made it to 50 degrees, but this week it's bitterly cold and about 3 inches of snow this morning on my way in. So Minnesota is finally getting some snow. We've had, at least where I'm at, we've had no snow, so or hardly any. So it's been a light winter so far, but February and March are usually the snowiest months. So I'm sure we're in for it. I'm sure we're going to pay for the mild winter we've had so far.
Oh yeah. Actually, it's going to be in the 50s, I think, this week. Up here in Columbus or down here in Columbus. And
I gotta head over to Columbus again and hang out with you some more, Cory.
Yeah. End of the month, I'll be heading down to Florida, so hopefully it'll be in the 70s or 80s down there.
Look at you. Well, yeah. Yeah, that'll be nice. That'll be nice. Well, I know in the meantime, you've been busy. You've been working hard. This is probably a busy time for you, right?
It is a busy time. People are obviously retiring. We have a lot of people, hitting that age where, maybe they also want to start taking Medicare and things like that as well. But this is actually, we do like being busy. I'll just kind of tell you that, right? It makes the job a lot easier when you are busy. But, the one thing that we really want to be able to do is, be able to provide the service. But here's the one thing. We want to make sure that when people retire, Tony, that they feel confident to retire. That's such a big thing, to have the confidence that you can retire. And even when we work with a lot of clients, we put together the income plans. There's many of them out there that can retire today. And it's nice to be able to go into a job and all of a sudden you don't like your new boss, where you can sit there and say, you know what, here's my 2 weeks notice. I am retiring. And the nice part about being able to do that is you put together a plan. We've worked with them for a while. And again, they have that confidence that they're going to have the retirement that they want.
Well, and especially you mentioned this, you alluded to this right there, but you've told me these stories so many times. People come in to meet with you, whether they've seen the video or listen to the show, and they come in to meet with you and you go over everything they've got. You have a couple of meetings, and again, there's no charge or obligation, but they have these meetings, and they're surprised. They think they're going to have to work until they're 70, and you're like, no, you could retire right now
Right.
based on this
Exactly.
information. So is sometimes people are pleasantly surprised, and sometimes people have unrealistic, like, I'm 57, I want to retire next year. And it's like, no, you're going to have to work till you're 67. Sorry. But, I mean, it can work both ways, but I think a lot of times people are surprised, aren't they?
I think they are surprised that if you've done a lot of the right things, which is save, I think obviously it's going to be in a better situation. But really, until you go through the process, Tony, I don't think you'll know whether you can retire or when you will be able to retire. I think that's so important, and I think a lot of people out there that might be listening, or even watching us on YouTube, might be sitting there thinking, you know what? I really don't want to go in there because I don't want to be told I can't retire.
Right.
And here's all I'm going to tell you: the individuals that are scared about coming in and working with an advisor to put together a plan is you need to know where you stand.
Yeah.
Right? Can you actually, what? Maybe your ideal goal is to retire at 65, but when you come in, it's going to be 67, or it could be 65, or it could be 64.
Yeah.
But until you kind of go through the process, you're not going to really know. And I think that's why working with an advisor, we're going to give you the confidence to be able to say, you know what, I can retire today.
Yeah, and that's huge. And I think knowing where you're at can actually help you reach your goal sooner, because you can make adjustments, and realizing where you're at and getting a plan in place is so helpful. I mean, I just, from my own experience, once my wife and I went in and figured it out, now that we're in our 50s, and we're like, oh, okay, we can make this work. Okay. We had no idea, right? I
Sure.
mean, we were guessing. We had no idea. So, you have to have somebody who does this every day. We're only going to go through the retirement process once, my wife and I. But Cory, you and your team there, you go through the retirement process every day with people, and you've
We
been
do.
doing it for years and helped so many people in our community retire, and you've helped a lot of people retire early that had wanted to. So I think it's really important that they get the plan in place. And you're right. I mean, in your 40s and 50s, that's what we're talking about here, and that's when you need the plan in place.
Yeah, you truly do. And again, that's really what we're here to help you with as well. As we kind of start talking here about, planning in your 50s, Tony, I mean,
Yep.
you just said you're 57, right?
Yep.
I'm 55. So this is kind of our time frame that we're going to kind of talk about today,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Odds are we want to retire sometime in our 60s. And one of the first things that you kind of have to look at, I want to use today's show. We talked about the 40s last week, but now I want to kind of tell you some of the differences that you really need to think about now that you actually reach that, golden age, right, of 50. Or in your 50s, right? In your 40s, as we discussed last week, from a risk standpoint, you're probably a little bit more aggressive. You're trying to grow that account. You're not going to retire at 50. But now you have to start kind of thinking about, now retirement might only be 10 or 15 years away compared to 20 to 25 years away, right? So you're getting a little bit closer to that. The one thing you want to start looking at, and it's probably as soon as you get to age really 55 is when you really you need to start looking at your investments, because you want to make sure they're going to be there when you retire. You don't want to have all your money in stocks. More than likely, you're going to be a little bit less. You want to be a little bit more conservative, but again, your risk tolerance is going to be able to tell you that. You just kind of want to make sure that, you're looking at that. But that time, I can't, we talk about this all the time. It's hard to believe how fast years go by.
Oh,
Right.
the older you get, the faster they fly by, right?
And that time horizon creeps up on you before you even know it.
Yeah.
So you need, so you need to make sure that you're doing everything you can to be able to make sure that you have the portfolio that you're going to need when you actually reach, your retirement ages, right?
Yeah. And what amazes me, Cory, just a side note, maybe some of our listeners can relate, but as I get older, for me, I still have certain days can creep by, and days can seem to still go by slowly, but years
Yes.
just like that. It's
Yes.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. A day can last seems like forever.
Right.
But the next thing you know, it's already February,
Exactly. What
right?
happened?
What
Yeah.
happened to January, Tony?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it's already flown by, right?
Yep.
Now from a savings standpoint, in your 40s, hopefully you ramped all that type of stuff up. If you're working with an advisor now, when you kind of get into your 50s, now you might have to be in a mode if you haven't saved enough to where you want to get to. Now you're into that catch up mode, right? You can put more money in your 401ks or your Roth 401ks because you have that catch up. You can even do that on individual or your traditional your traditional IRAs or traditional Roth IRAs. So it's important to be able to make sure that you are saving enough on a monthly basis or an annual basis to get to where you want to. you know a good measuring stick, like we always talk about, you want to be saving 10 to 15%. This is probably the decade where you're making the most money on an annual basis too, which means you should be able to save more. And hopefully you're also going to be in that area where, you're going to become an empty nester, right?
Yep.
I think you can validate that, Tony.
Oh yeah. Yeah, my kids are all the last two are in college, and one is 20, so she comes back home a bit, but the other two are fully moved out. So we have three kids, and really we are empty nesters now, and it's a whole different ball game once you're empty nesters.
Yeah.
Of course, the expenses are still there if you have kids that are
Sure.
in their
Sure.
in their
Sure.
20s. My son is finally on his own, married and got a full-time job, but my two daughters not quite there yet, Cory. We're waiting.
Yep. Um, yeah. And we a second ago, we just talked about risk tolerance. But
Yeah.
as you I think another good age is 55 plus.
Yep.
Now you might have to start looking at different types of products. Does it make sense to possibly put money into a fixed indexed annuity to be able to create your own pension? Because odds are you don't have a pension.
Right.
Um, with where the majority of people work anymore. So again, you need to understand what your risk level is. You need to be able to make sure that you're going to be able to preserve a lot of those assets now that you've actually have accumulated to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good time to always look at your risk tolerance.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know you have tools there to help, and we've talked about this a lot on past shows, but you have a risk analysis people can take to see where their personal risk tolerance is at, plus where they should be at and where they actually are at. And that's what you look at and compare those. You can run reports like the Morningstar report, things like that, and see how much risk they actually have, right?
Yeah. If you go to our website at safeharboroh.com, right on the top, right on the very top of the page, it's going to say risk assessment.
Mm-hmm.
You can click on it. It's going to ask you 11 questions. At the end of the day, it's going to give you a score, and we can help. We can work with you to make sure that your allocations are within your score range. And one thing you'll notice is just normally as you age, right? As you age, you're going to get a little bit more conservative. You just want to make sure your portfolio is following you that way as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, people want to make sure that they have their assets properly allocated, and that's a big part of what the retirement income plan is. It'll help you do that. So, what's next? That's risk tolerance. What's next?
We talked about, obviously, now let's talk about debt. We've always talked about debt, being able to get out of debt.
Yeah,
And now, when you're in your 40s, you actually might be, in the middle of right in the middle of your mortgage. Hopefully, you're starting to pay that student debt off. But now, when you're in your 50s, now you have to start prioritizing to see what you can do to have no debt going into retirement.
right.
What do I need to do to pay the house off? I'm not saying throw down a lump sum, but you want to make sure if potentially the day that you retire, you no longer have a house note. It's gonna make life a lot easier for you, right?
Right.
Hopefully you can get rid of all the student debt, or the student loan debt that you might have at that point in time as well. Car payments you might have, it'd be always nice. One thing that we always try to do personally is maybe have one car. Maybe we have a little bit of a loan on, but ideally we're trying to make sure that we don't have any car payments as well. If you don't have a car payment, if you don't have a house payment, when you're in retirement, that's huge, because those are monthly payments that you're not going to have to take out of your retirement savings on a monthly basis in order to live. So getting out of debt, this is a great time to work with, have the discussions with your advisor on what you need to make sure that you're going to be debt free when you do retire.
Plus, if you might need, everybody makes mistakes or gets into bad situations, you might want to need some help getting out of your credit card debt. You want to have that all paid off before you retire. That's for sure.
Yep. And let's talk about healthcare. That kind of goes with this, right? You might still be in a situation where in your 40s, you probably didn't believe me that you needed long-term care or some type of insurance. But, now you're in your 50s and you actually might be seeing now what your parents are going through. Your parents are a little older. Now they're actually starting to have some health issues, and you can actually see it firsthand on the things that you might want to put in place so you don't have to go through what they're going through. It's just, that's kind of reality. Healthcare is going to, start. It's going to get more and more expensive. In the 50s, you're still younger. You still can get, based upon your age, the products are going to be cheaper for you than when you're in your 60s. So it's something to be able to seriously start talking to your advisor about, because there's a lot of different types of products and solutions out there to be able to help you in case the day does come later on in retirement, when you're going to need some type of healthcare assistance.
Yeah. Yeah. And the healthcare is a big one. That's going to be a big cost for people in retirement, as we've talked about on previous shows. So, you need to look at that and plan for healthcare, plan for lifestyle. These are big parts of retirement that sometimes people don't figure into their retirement plans or don't think they need to plan for.
That's exactly right. And, I know there's a lot of people don't like the word. Sometimes when you talk about life insurance, they don't like that. Why do I need life insurance? Especially if I'm in retirement. But the way life insurance works today, Tony, you can use it to build cash if you want to do that. Of course, you get a death benefit, but you can also use that death benefit for long-term care, right?
Yep.
So there's a lot of different things that you can actually do with life insurance to be able to meet whatever needs that you want. And I can tell you this, the more and more people the clients that I work with that are in their 50s and 60s, a lot of them are wishing they had some type of long-term care, just for the fact that they're seeing what their parents are going through right now. Right.
Yeah.
It's more of a reality to them when you start seeing someone that you love go through that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important, and it is. It is, and you don't want to leave your loved ones in a bad situation, or yourself. So you have to, especially if you're married, you have to think of your spouse, right? When you're doing this planning, and it's one big reason to look at your healthcare planning and look at some of those other needs, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, it's something that you need to do. We can do a review for you, discuss all that stuff with you, and again, there's no cost to you to sit down and just have those type of discussions with us. So, as you kind of get, in your later 50s, the one thing you want to start looking at too is your Social Security too, right, Tony?
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm saying that is, we have a Social Security maximization, so we can start looking at what's going to be the best way for you or you and your spouse to be able to actually implement Social Security when you retire. And that's really kind of the foundation that we kind of lay down for your income planning. So we're already starting to think about, here's maybe the number that you might want to have in retirement. Well, how are you going to get to that number, right? So it's going to be Social Security, and maybe any other pensions that you might have. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we understand what that retirement gap's going to be. And that retirement gap is, here's your monthly budget based upon everything else that you have, which is Social Security and pensions. And that gap's going to have to come out of your retirement savings. So the more that we can maximize Social Security in the long run, the less you have to take out of your actual savings. So it's a great thing to be able to do, where we can go in and show that Social Security maximization report to you, and then start laying that foundation for the income plan into your financial plan for you when, or to your retirement plan for the day that you do want to retire.
Right. Yeah. And you're right. The timing of it makes a huge difference when it comes to all the things we're talking about. When do you want to retire? And based on that, you have to figure out what needs to happen. Right.
Yeah, exactly right. Um, yeah, and that's the most important part. When you go through and you work with an advisor and we put together the plan day one, it just doesn't sit there. We review that plan every year because things change, right? I mean, and you have to be able to adapt to that change, whatever that might end up being. Maybe you got a promotion, making a lot more money. Maybe you lose a job. How all is that going to be able to affect, your retirement plan? And that's why it's so important that we update that retirement plan every year just to make sure that you're going to be on target, right? And if you look from a career standpoint, right, this is probably the time you're making the most amount of money. And one thing that you're going to probably envision pretty quick is when we start putting together the plan, you still might want to retire at age 65, but we might have a little bit of a short gap, or that a gap in your income plan, right? Now you can start thinking, you know what? I want to retire at 65, but I might have to go out and get a part-time job. Now the reality is kind of sitting in that, you know what, I am going to retire, but I'm going to go out and work 20 hours a week in order to fill some of that gap so I can retire. And there's nothing wrong with going on and getting a part-time job. It's going to be better for you mentally, probably. You're going to be able to socialize. You're going to be able to get out. It's going to be a lot more
important.
Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with, maybe getting a part-time. Here's the nice part about a part-time job is when you leave the job, you're not thinking about it anymore.
No.
Unlike what we do today.
Right.
Right.
And you can get a job doing something you like. A lot of people now have side hustles, or, they call it the gig economy.
Yep.
And a lot more people are doing that in retirement, but that requires some additional planning, and it can help you with payments and income in retirement. But you also it can affect your Medicare, and it can affect your Social Security. So all these things are tied together, right? And
they are.
That's the important part of everything you're saying. And especially once you hit your 50s, like 55 seems to be the key number where you've got to, if you haven't started, you got to start planning for retirement.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. When we start looking at, we last time, I know we're getting ready to wrap up here, Tony, but obviously estate planning, hopefully, and you put something together in your 40s.
Yeah.
Now you're just reviewing this things at least on an annual basis, or as things change. Or maybe you move to a different state. You might need new documents or whatever that might end up being. But now you're just kind of getting into just to making sure that you're just updating your estate plan every year based upon changes, within your lifestyle. And the way I'll kind of leave it here, Tony, is the big takeaway, I think, when you look at your 50s compared to your 40s is this. Now you're really fine tuning your financial plan. You put one in place in your 40s. Now you're actually really, it's coming to reality pretty quick now. So you're going to be able to fine tune that. You have to start thinking about maybe shifting some of your investments, from a aggressive. Now you're trying to be able to conserve and preserve. And then the last thing I would, think about is now you're starting to really think about retirement's coming, and how am I going to be able to transition to that from the workplace to an everyday, retirement day.
Yeah. Yeah, that transition is tough, and you need to plan for it. Now, we're almost out of time, Cory. Why don't you let our listeners know how they can get their own plan in place?
Yeah, for our listeners out there, just give us a call at 614-760-0670, or you can visit our website at safeharboroh.com. Again, we're here to help and guide you to make sure that you have the best retirement that you can. And the best way to do that is really to sit down with us, put together a financial plan. And just remember, all meetings are complimentary and there's no financial obligation. We're here truly to help you to have the best retirement that you possibly can.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Cory. Great show today. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. That does it for today's episode of Financially Fit Radio.
Thank you for listening to Financially Fit Radio. Don't pay too much for taxes or retire without a sound income plan. For more information, contact Cory Sickles at Safe Harbor Retirement Group. Call 614-760-0670 or visit their website at financiallyfitoh.com.
All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Federal Medicare Program, or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.